Hello students, welcome back with me, Miss Yensi Runtamberu Hamaratu. Today we are going to learn about narrative text. Do you know what is narrative text? Narrative text is a story with complication or problematic event and it tries to find the resolution to solve the problems. An important part of narrative text is the narrative mode, the set of methods used to communicate the narrative through a process narration. What is the function or the purpose of narrative text? The function or the purpose of narrative text is to amuse or to entertain the reader with a story. Narrative texts have a several generic structure. The first is orientation, second is complication. In orientation is set the scene, where and when the story happened, and introduce the participant of the story. It is about who and what is involved in the story. In complication is tells about the beginning of the problems which leads to the crisis or climax of the main participant. So in the complication, there is the problems began. The third structure is resolution. In resolution is the place where the problem or the crisis is resolved, either in a happy ending or in a sad ending. And the last one is reorientation or coda. This is a closing remark to the story and it is optional. It consists of moral lesson, advice, or teaching from the writer. So in the reorientation or coda is the moral message from the story for our life. Next is the language feature of narrative text. First is in narrative text, the language feature is use past tense. Why the narrative text use past tense? Because the writing in narrative text is fiction or imagination, therefore the grammar that is more commonly used is past tense. And the second language feature is time conjunction and adverb of time. As explained above, narrative text is written in order based on the chronology of time. Therefore, time conjunction is needed as a time liaison such as when, before, after, and others to explain the chronology of an event, while adverb of time are needed in writing narrative text with the aim of showing the time of occurrence of an event. For example, once upon a time, one day, and others. So, time conjunction, the example is when, before, and after. And adverb of time is like once upon a time, one day, a long time ago. It is the example of adverb of time that we can see in narrative text. Next is action verb. In language feature of narrative text, there is action verb. Uh, the use of action verb in narrative text is one of the characteristics that need to be remembered. This action verb is a verb that indicates an action of character. Because the grammar used in narrative text is in the form of past tense, action verb also written in the second form. For example, love, cry, walk, swam, say, and marry. The action verb in uh, verb 2 because as I told you before, the in narrative text they in writing they use past tense. And the last one is direct speech. If you read a narrative text, surely you will notice that there are quotes taken from the conversation of characters in the story. This is also known as direct speech. Dialogue between characters is very important to write so that important information can be conveyed interestingly and the story will be more alive. In addition, this will also make it easier for readers to understand the content of the story. So the direct speech it means the participant or the character in narrative text do conversation with their friends in the story. Next, we move to types of narrative text. Uh, types of narrative text. First is fable. Uh, it is a story that revolves around animals, for example, the ugly duckling, deer and crocodile, country of the mice, a bear and a rabbit. It is example of types narrative in fable. Second is myth. Myth is a story that develops in society and is generally considered as a factual story or actually happened. For example, Ajisaka and Dewata Cengkar. Third is legend. Legend is a story that tells about how a place originated. For example, the legend of Surabaya, the legend of Prambanan Temple, story of Lake Toba, the story about Sangkuriang, that is about types of narrative in legend. Fourth is folk tale or folklore. It is a story about passed down from generation to generation until it becomes part of the community tradition. For example, Malin Kundang and Golden Eggs. Fifth is fairy tales. Fairy tales is a folk tale or children's story. So folk tale is a children's story that has magic in the story told by its author. For example, Cucumber Mas, Tinkerbell, and Golden Snail. Sixth is love story. A love story, or we can say it's romance, is a story that tells generally the love struggle of the main character or about the love story of the character. For example, Romeo and Juliet, I'm one of those full men. 7 is personal experience. Personal experience is a narrative text that contains the other personal experience. Next, Slice of life is a story that contains activities or stories that occur in the daily life of writers or imaginative characters. For example, true friends. Next, horror stories. It is a type of narrative text that tells scary stories, generally such as ghosts or other astral beings. And the last one is science fiction. It is a story that revolves around things related to science. There is about types of narrative text. So, uh, today we have learned about narrative text, the generic structure of narrative text, the language feature of narrative text, and the last one is the types of narrative text. So, uh, based on my explanation, I hope you are understand. You have any question, you can ask. Thank you.